The Shurangama Sutra, Volume 1, 56. Even if I were to slander the Dharma and eternally sever my good roots, it would also be because of this mind. If this is not my mind, then I have no mind, and I am the same as a clod of earth or a piece of wood, because nothing exists apart from this awareness and knowing. Why does the Tathagata say this is not my mind? I am startled and frightened, and not one member of the Great Assembly is without doubt. I only hope that the Bhagavan will regard us with great compassion and instruct those who have not yet awakened. Then the Bhagavan gave instruction to Ananda and the Great Assembly, wishing to cause their minds to enter the state of patience with the non-existence of beings and dharmas. From the lion's seat he rubbed Ananda's crown and said to him, "The Tathagata has often said that all dharmas that arise are only manifestations of the mind. All causes and effects, the worlds as many as atoms of universe, take on substance because of the heart. Ananda, if we regard all the things in the world, including blades of grass and strands of silk, examining them at their fundamental source, each is seen to have a nature. Even empty space has a name and an appearance. And so, how could the clear, wonderful, pure, bright mind, the essence of all thought, itself be without substance? If you insist that the nature which is aware, observes, and knows is the mind, then apart from all forms, smells, tastes, and tangibles, apart from the workings of all the defiling objects, that mind should have its own complete nature. And yet now, as you listen to my Dharma, it is because of sound that you are able to make distinctions. Even if you could put an end to all seeing, hearing, awareness, and knowing, and maintain an inner composure, the shadows of your discrimination of dharmas would remain. I do not insist that you grant that it is not the mind, but examine your mind in minute detail to see whether there is a discriminating nature apart from sense objects. That would truly be your mind. If the discriminating nature you discover has no substance apart from objects, then that would make it just a shadow of discriminations of mental objects. The objects are not eternal, and when they pass out of existence, such a mind would be like fur on a tortoise or horns on a rabbit. In that case, your Dharma body would come to an end along with it. Then who would be left to cultivate and attain patience with the non-existence of beings and dharmas? At that point, Ananda and everyone in the Great Assembly was speechless and at a total loss. The Buddha said to Ananda, "There are cultivators in the world who, although they realize the 9 successive stages of samadhi, do not achieve the extinction of outflows or become arhats, all because they are attached to birth and death and false thinking and mistake these for what is truly real. That is why now, although you are highly erudite, you have not realized sagehood." When Ananda heard that, he again wept sorrowfully, placed his 5 limbs on the ground, and knelt on both knees, put his palms together, and said to the Buddha, "Since I followed the Buddha and left home, I have relied on the Buddha's stateliness and sacrosanctity. I have often thought, there is no reason for me to toil at cultivation, expecting that the Tathagata would bestow samadhi on me. I never realized that he could not stand in for me in body or mind. Thus I lost my original mind, and although my body has left the home life, my mind has not entered the way. I am like the poor son who renounced his father and roamed around. Therefore today I realize that although I am greatly learned, if I do not cultivate, it amounts to not having learned anything. Just as someone who only speaks of food will never get full, Bhagavan, now we are all bound by 2 obstructions, and as a consequence do not perceive the still, eternal nature of the mind. I only hope the Tathagata will empathize with us, poor and destitute ones, disclose the wonderful bright mind, and open our way eyes. Then from the svastika myriad on his chest, the Tathagata poured forth gem-like light. Radiant with hundreds of thousands of colors, this brilliant light simultaneously pervaded throughout the 10 directions to Buddha realms as many as atoms of universe, anointing the crowns of every Tathagata in all these jeweled Buddha lands of the 10 directions. Then it swept back to Ananda and the great assembly. The Buddha said to Ananda, "I will now erect the great Dharma banner for you, to cause all living beings in the 10 directions to obtain the wondrous subtle secret, the pure nature, the bright mind, and to attain those pure eyes. Ananda, you have told me that you saw my fist of bright light. How did it take the form of a fist? How did the fist come to emit light? How was the fist made? By what means could you see it?" Ananda replied, "The body of the Buddha is born of purity and cleanness, and therefore it assumes the color of Jambu River gold with deep red hues. Hence it shone as brilliant and dazzling as a precious mountain. It was actually my eyes that saw the Buddha bend his 5-wheeled fingers to form a fist which was shown to all of us." The Buddha told Ananda, "Today the Tathagata will tell you the truth. All those with wisdom are able to achieve enlightenment through the use of examples. Ananda, take for example my fist. If I didn't have a hand, I couldn't make a fist. If you didn't have eyes, you couldn't see. If you apply the example of my fist to the case of your eyes, is the principle the same?" Ananda said, "Yes, Bhagavan. Since I can't see without my eyes, if one applies the example of the Tathagata's fist to the case of my eyes, the principle is the same." The Buddha said to Ananda, "You say it is the same, but that is not right. Why? If a person has no hand, his fist is gone forever. But one who is without eyes is not entirely devoid of sight. Why not? Try consulting a blind man on a street. What do you see? Any blind person will certainly answer, 'Now I see only darkness in front of my eyes. Nothing else meets my gaze.' The meaning is apparent. If he sees dark in front of him, how could his sight be considered lost?" Ananda said, "The only thing blind people see in front of their eyes is darkness. How can that be called seeing?" The Buddha said to Ananda, "Is there any difference between the darkness seen by blind people who do not have the use of their eyes and the darkness seen by someone who has the use of his eyes when he is in a dark room?" Stated in that way, Bhagavan, there is no difference between the 2 kinds of blackness, that seen by a person in a dark room and that seen by the blind. Ananda, if the person without the use of his eyes, who sees only darkness, were suddenly to regain his sight and see all kinds of forms, and you say it is his eyes which see, then when a person in a dark room who sees only darkness suddenly sees all kinds of forms because a lamp is lit, you should say it is the lamp which sees. If the lamp did the seeing, it would be endowed with sight.